Well, how do you actually improve fast at golf? Well, this is exactly what I want to cover before we actually dive into the weekly recap, tell you what happened last week and what I'm going to do this week. Because last week was the picking week of the mesocycle, and next week is the deload. And I want to talk a little bit about how that actually affects the way I'm training at golf, and not necessarily just on the side of physical training, but actually to improve my skill as a golfer. Before I show you something on the whiteboard, I just want to explain. See, you have those mesocycles. Let's actually grow it a little. So you have those mesocycles which are blocked off either 5 or 4 weeks. And what I've shown you before is the way it works. Right here. So for instance, on a cycle that is 4 weeks long, you are going to have the first week that is moderate intensity / volume, then high intensity / volume, and then on the third week, you're pushing your limit, which for instance, the first mesocycle was a 5-week mesocycle, so the fourth week, which was last week, was the one where I was trying to push my limit. But I'm going to explain on golf term what that actually means. And then you have what is called the deload week, which is lower intensity. So that's kind of the premise of what periodization is, what every pro athlete, high performer are using. But how can you actually apply that to actually improve your skill at golf? Because that's something I pretty much never heard anyone talk about, but that's so important that, if you want to improve, especially when you're starting getting a very high level, in order to improve, you need a high amount of volume. Something that a lot of people don't really understand or even know is that as you progress, your what's called the maintenance requirement in terms of work is getting pretty much the same. It stays relatively constant. This is, for instance, just the level of work you need to get done just to maintain your skill. That's good. But what people generally don't know is the better you are, the more volume of work you are required in order to improve. So the relationship is something more like that. So the maintenance level is actually staying relatively the same, but the level of work required to improve something increases over time. So that's why periodization is very important, because you will periodize by block, as I shown you on my spreadsheet, where you are going to put some stuff on maintenance and focus on really pushing other stuff, getting the necessary volume you need in order to get to the next level. But I'm going to go in detail about, because the way I want to, in periodization, you really have two things that you need to think about when you have the cycle here, which start moderate intensity, rise, and then deload, and then it continues. So you have mainly two things. So here this is time, and here is intensity / volume. So in golf, the volume is pretty much simple. It's relatively how many balls you are hitting, or how much golf course you are practicing. That's kind of the volume. But where it's more difficult to understand is the intensity part. For speed, for instance, that's pretty straightforward. It's just the intensity you're trying to push speed. But then for every other skill of golf, precision, short game, putting, that can be a little difficult to grasp. What does it mean to actually vary intensity? I'm going to take the example of what I did over the last few weeks with changing my technique. At the beginning, by changing my technique, I was changing a little something here and there, and then that was kind of the beginning here, week 1. I was kind of okay, putting myself just a little bit out of my comfort zone by changing one little thing at a time here and there. And so my swing was still my swing, but I started getting a little out of my comfort zone by changing things here and there. As the weeks progressed, I started changing more and more things. And so the intensity that we are talking about is the number of things in my mind I needed to focus on in order to execute those changes without having them automated. Because a skill that you have practiced a lot, you don't even have to think a lot about it. So that doesn't require a lot of mental intensity. But a skill that is new, when you are changing your swing, that require, and the more things you are changing, the more mental intensity that require. And so going on until 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, until last week, what happened is I pretty much reached the peak intensity because I have changed, compared to the beginning, every single thing in my technique. And so each session that I was doing, where I was even looking at the camera, was a session where I had to focus on everything at the same time, trying to remember everything at the same time. And so that was creating an insane overload, because the goal of periodization is to create a massive overload on the last week and progressively increase that overload on your neural system, and mainly your mind is communicating with your body through your neural system. So when you're overloading your mind, you're overloading your neural system. And I reached this peak where at this point I had changed pretty much everything there was to change in my technique. But none of them was automated yet. And so that's what we call a peak mental intensity in terms of technique and changing and improving skill. That's why I want to talk about that, because next week is going to be the deload. And so how am I actually going to go about a deload? What a deload even mean in that context? Well, in that context, what I'm thinking about doing is actually stop looking at the camera. Just focus on everything that I have learned so far, and just repeat it over and over and over without introducing new elements. Because during all this phase, I was constantly introducing new elements, which was constantly overloading my system to adapt and get better. Here, during the deload, I don't want that. I want to consolidate what I have done, relax a little bit my neural system by avoiding adding new thing. So what I'm going to do is, and we are going to go in detail, but the idea of deload is you want to find back to a comfort level, a comfort zone, based on after all the improvement you have made. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking here, is I'm just going to eat both, trying to execute perfectly everything that I think I should be executing perfectly. And then I will find, okay, a little bit of stabilization, and our system is going to get more stable. I'm going to get more comfortable with the new motion. And also what's going to be very interesting is after that consolidation, once I'm going to start a new cycle, I will see, okay, I have practiced those motions that I thought were right. I have practicing a lot, but I don't get the final result. Oh, okay. So maybe that wasn't the actual motion I wanted to do. So that's kind of the idea of working on technique. But there is this idea of mental intensity that you're pretty much putting a cycle through is usable on everything. Because, for instance, if you want to work on your putting, you can use periodization to actually get a lot better at that. When at the beginning you're doing pretty much the things that you're comfortable with, and you're adding a little bit more new element or a little bit more difficulties into it, a little bit more focus also into it, until you reach a point where this is maximum focus, maximum intensity, where maybe you're going to do a lot of just exercise that are really pushing you to be under stress, under pressure, just to have a really clear mind. And then you're doing your dialogue where you're actually just chilling out a little bit, relaxing your system, allowing to adapt to the new thing and so on. For instance, that can be if you want to introduce the endpoint system. I'm just taking an example, but that can be anything. The endpoint system. Okay, you have the way you are doing things at the beginning, but then progressively, as you are introducing the endpoint system, you are going to add more and more things to your system, to the way you are doing, and you are keep going until okay, you have a lot of things in your mind. And when you reach that point where you have a lot of things, almost too much in your mind, you take the deload. You don't introduce new things. You just keep on repeating the things that you have learned. Doesn't matter if this is the endpoint or not, if you have more things to learn or not. Just the idea is just to take a break, to let your nervous system adapt to all the new information that you have provided. And then once you are comfortable with that, you can go on to a new cycle of pushing again. But the way it works is you don't have to take a lot of time here. For instance, in my schedule, that's just 1 week of deal. But during this week, I'm going to do quite a bit of training, but I'm going to do it in a way that doesn't surcharge or overload my nervous system, which to allow it to actually adapt and get comfortable with the new motion. That way, then when I will start again with a new cycle, I will be comfortable with that. And this also, that's why you have weekly mesocycle, which are week by week basis, but you have also monthly cycles. And if we come back to here, for instance, here you see that this is the first macro cycle, which is composed of pretty much 2 main cycle, and like this one, which is more stabilization. Because the reason is also what I've shown you just here. After 2 full cycles of changing stuff, adapting, putting overload on my nervous system, I might need a little longer chunk than just 1 week in order to adapt to all that I have learned and stabilize. So for a full month, I put about 4 weeks. I'm going to be mainly focused on stabilizing, getting more comfortable. That's why I really want to actually, by the end of February, be very, very close to Rory's swing, because I will then want to stabilize that, not necessarily adding new things, so I can focus on other aspects for the next cycle, for the next macro cycle, because those are macro cycles. You see here. So for the next macro cycle, I would like to start focusing on speed and so on. And so no more changing technique just for the sake of changing technique to get closer to Rory. If I change technique on that cycle, it's only going to be because it's going to generate more speed, not because I want to get closer to Rory's swing. So that's why here we have made some great progress over the first few 5 weeks. I'm going to consolidate during this 5th week of the first mesocycle. But on the next mesocycle that is coming for February, I really need to push through and get Rory's, as close as possible to Rory's swing, because then I'm going to move on to something else. So that's kind of the way it works in order to follow, because for physical training, that's pretty straightforward. You are pushing, you're adding weight, then at the end of the mesocycle, you are reducing the weight, reducing the volume to get your body to adapt, and then once you start a new cycle, you keep adding weight. So that's pretty brainless, to say the least. Where on the other side, in golf, that kind of, okay, you have to think a little bit about it on deeper level. How do I make it work so it works the best? And for instance, on the cycle 2, the skill that I'm going to work on golf is actually going to transfer my swing motion that I've done to the speed stick motion and start actually using the speed stick to help me gain speed. So I need to automate the new swing that we have built, transfer that swing to actually the speed stick, or being able to swing the speed stick and have it being transferred to the actual swing. So I want both swings to be so similar that when I make progress on the speed sticks side, that actually transfer on my swing side. So that's kind of the thing we are going to work on the cycle 2. But anyway, that was kind of where I wanted to go with that. I hope that's interesting, and let's get into the actual cycle for today, for this, the recap, the weekly recap for the last week and actually what happened. So when I went on the scale this morning, I was pretty happy, to be honest, because see, 15.10%. And also 61.9 kilograms, which means I'm still gaining muscle. That's pretty much insane. That's just insane because just take a look at it. Here I have average 1200 calorie deficit for on average per day. 1200 calorie deficit, which is insane. And so, come here, better. and despite of that, I have been able to keep on building muscle, lose fat. And so even though you see that compared to where I started, I only lost 1 kilogram total, but I'm on track. And actually I built this chart here just to keep track of it a little better. So the blue line is a 10% goal here, and this is the decline. And so, honestly, after 5 weeks, 4 or 5? No, 4 weeks, because this was at the beginning of the first week. So we moved 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So in 4 weeks, I lost 4%, which just means we are on track because the goal was to lose 1% per week, and I have 9 weeks, and so I should get close to 10% by the end. So we are on track, so I'm pretty happy about that. But what is most insane for me is actually that I'm maintaining my muscle mass very well, and even building muscle as I'm losing fat. So that's pretty much awesome. Then on the detail of the mesocycle, so you can see perfect week this week. That's actually the first week, I believe. No, the very first week where it was a perfect streak as well. But yeah, second and third week, I had each time just one day where it was difficult. But this time was actually really good. And what make a very big difference here was at the first 3 days, I had to retrieve ball in the mud in order to hit my balls on the range. And this actually had a lot of cardio. And so each day that I did that, it was very easy for me to get close to 300, almost 3,500 calories on those 2 days here. So yeah, pretty much very, very interesting thing. On the other side, on the workout side, also something very cool. I finally hit the 10 round on the 1,000 reps workout. Actually, where is my iPhone? I didn't put the last session, but I believe it was under 50 minutes as well. So yeah, I've managed to be able to 49.43. 0.49.43. So I've managed to do my full 10 rounds, and I've managed to do them under an hour, and even under 50 minutes, which is pretty insane. My personal best, as I told you before, is actually under 40 minutes, but that's going to be insane. And I'm not going to do that on deload weeks, because that's also something I wanted to talk to you about today, is how am I going to manage the workouts here with the deload week, because my goal is still to lose 1% of body fat this week. But if I keep on putting pressure on my body, I need this deload. This is important to recover and get better, and to be able to finish those 2 cycles in the right condition. But what I found is actually, and that's the magic of this 1,000 reps workout, is once I reach the point of 9 and 10 round, something crazy start to happen. I don't know if that's because that's probably that, but my muscle fibers that are type 2X start radically shifting toward type 2A, which is a lot more endurance type of muscle fibers. And my genetic made me that I have ton of type 2X, or this type 2 in general muscle fiber. I'm not very endurant, but I have a lot of type 2. And I know that this workout each time allow my fiber to migrate to type 2A. And when that happens, I start getting a crazy amount of endurance. And so I believe that maybe that, but also adding one round when you're at 10 round, at 9 round already, and you go to 10, that's only 10% increase in workload. And so what happened during this week, that's why I was able to continuously decrease the time, is because my body was adapting so fast, and actually it didn't feel that hard. So what I'm thinking is, I'm not going to change anything. Since my body is adapting perfectly well to this 10 rounds workout and so on, I'm going to stick with it. Because until now, what I was doing is each week I was adding something just to keep up, because when you are losing fat, your metabolism is dropping. And so you need to keep increasing the intensity to just be able to maintain the decrease in of your metabolism, just to maintain yourself at a specific number, which is eating 3,000 calories of deficit of expenditure per day. So that was what I was doing. So this week, I could see myself going under 3,000 calories per day. That could happen because I'm not going to increase the intensity or volume at all during this. I'm just going to stick exactly with that. Same on the workload here. I'm just going to, actually here I did 2 reps on 95. I'm not going to increase anything here. I am just going to deadlift. Okay. I'm just going to sorry. I'm just going to maintain. I'm just going to maintain. Do chill workout. Just get it done. And since my body have already adapted, the fact that I'm not adding more things is going to be a deload. So yeah. And on the boxing side, honestly, I'm kind of more or less doing it. It's just that I found that as a warm-up, when you're doing it every single day, that can be really tough on your joint. So what I do instead is I do 15 minutes of seated bike just to warm up, and then I feel like going for the 10 round of the workout, and then I do the heavy lifting at the end, and then I do a little bit of hypertrophy to finish like this. Yeah. And so what I will do probably is, here you can see, because in February I will need to continue increase the intensity if I want to keep my pace of losing fat in some way. So there is multiple ways. I'm not going to go above 10 rounds. 10 rounds is more than enough. But what I may do is, actually, you see that there is exercise that have only 5 reps here. So I have 2 options. Either I can increase the weight on the exercise, or I can increase the reps. So I can really see myself going 10 squat, 10 pull-ups, 10 overhead press, and 10 dips. And over the course of the 4 weeks, I believe, of the February mesocycle, maybe just increase 1 reps per week, or 1 or 2 reps. I don't know. Maybe one the first 3 days, and then another the next 3. So it will take about 2 weeks to get to 10 reps. And then once I'm to about 10 reps, I can increase actually the load, because also that's something important. Since I'm losing fat and I'm getting a little lighter, increasing the load might be interesting, to just because a reason why the workout might start feeling easier is also because I'm getting lighter. And so increasing the load might also be a good way to increase intensity and keep up with the fact that my metabolism is continuously dropping. Yep, I think that's it for that. Also, yeah, speed. So I keep tracking the speed for the week. It's steadily steadily increase. We see that now I'm averaging 107 per session, so that's good. What I would, as I told you, I want my baseline to be somewhere around 119. Honestly, I start thinking that's going to be very difficult. But if I can have the last week of February where my average is above 110 for all sessions, I believe that's going to be already a very good success, because if I average everything above 110 and I can get my max for the session at 115, that's already a good win, since compared to where we have started. Because also that's something, 115 might be possible, averaging 150 for the session if I wasn't doing the dieting. But because I'm doing the dieting, of course, as I'm going deeper and deeper into it, I'm going to have less and less energy. Even though I try to keep up with my metabolism and so on, I try to compensate to keep enough energy, I'm going to get to have just less energy overall. So if I can just be able to get an average above 110, I believe it's a big win already, given the lack of energy I'm going to have, and with a max at 115. For the number of balls, we'll see. We will see, depending on how fast my metabolism is dropping, how well I'm adapting to other variable of training. But for now, 100 balls, 100 drives is a volume that I feel comfortable recovering from. Week 5 is actually here. And this one we can delete because this is the day off. Delete zero. Yeah, for now, this is a volume of ball that I can easily recover from and get ready for the next day. I would like to get that higher, but that's not a very big requirement at the moment, because on the cycle 2 that I've shown you here, come back here. So on the cycle 2 that is right there, this is where we are going to start building up the speed training routine. And so that's why I put speed endurance training, is because we are going to, the goal is to get up to 200 balls per session with 120 balls to warm up, and then 70 balls to actual speed. But I'm not, since this is the beginning and we are still on the early phase of the season, that's not going to be a hardcore like a 70 balls. It's just, I'm going to warm up to 120. After 120, I'm going to do the speed stick and really try to transfer the skill of my swing to the speed stick, and vice versa. Everything that I'm learning with the speed stick, try to transfer it to the actual swing, and that the 70 balls that are going to come after the 120 warm up with and the speed stick is going to be actually me trying to understand how to apply the things that I'm learning with the speed stick onto my drive with moderate intensity, between 80 to 90, not going too crazy, because here you see at the end that's going to be full 100%, 120% of what I can give at every session. But here we are still early. So we are still building foundation, as I showed you here. So the first cycle 1 is kind of here, so that's kind of moderate intensity. Then cycle 2 is going to be here. We are going to rise intensity, but moderately, don't get crazy about it. Hitting 200 balls and going between 80-90% on the 70 last ball is actually already good enough. Then we are going to have cycle 3, or here we are actually going to train for speed. Really, so we are actually the 70 balls that are going to be that. I'm not going to go all in, but very close to it. And also at this point, the speed stick is going to also help me get better and so on. So we have a lot of things compounding. And then for the last 2 cycles here, which are about speed, this is where the intensity is. So the 200 ball is going to be, the last 70 ball is going to be all in, really trying to push speed as hard as possible. So that's how I'm building it. I'm building the year that way with the same amount of cycle that I've shown you just here. So yeah, I think that's it. So maybe we can just take a look at the swing, or maybe not, because I found that the swing that I choose, because I try to just choose random swing, but yeah, I guess that's it for today. That's already good. I will try so this week to go in detail, to consolidate everything that we have learned, as I explained, because this week is a deload week, so I need to consolidate. So that's why I want to warn you that probably the video are going to be less entertaining, and that's why also I want to create and test new type of videos where so I'm going to just keep the beginning the same, the swing comparison, the me talking, explaining you through, and so on. But what I might want to do after is actually try different type of content. Since I'm not going to, I don't want to think too much, because when I'm talking, I'm thinking a lot also. So I'm just going to eat ball, yes, try to stay in my mind, focus on my feeling, trying to get the right motion right, and so on. And so what I want to test, and you will tell me, is that something you like, to do some ASMR kind of style video where I just put the microphone close to the impact area, and try to capture the sound, the ambient sound also, and just hit balls, and also shoot them in 4K, so you can put them on TV if you want, and just let the sound, because I don't know for you, but what's me sometimes, this kind of video that I did in the past, that was that it's kind of cool to just have the sound of the practice range. I don't know, there is something I like about it. So I would test that, and I would really want to have your feedback on it. Is that something you like? And is that something that every now and then I can do in my video? Because that's also something I've been thinking about, is, okay, that's cool that I'm explaining out loud and so on, that because that also helped me be clear on what I'm trying to do. But sometimes I also need to just focus inside, stop getting too crazy, stop overthinking. And so on those time, I need to stop talking and just focus. And so the video itself is going to be less entertaining if I don't add another perspective. And the other perspective, I feel maybe the idea of ASMR practice range would make sense and could make a very interesting rest of video. The way I'm thinking of doing it is kind of putting timestamp in the description, so that way people that are just interested in the ASMR part can just jump into the ASMR part. If you're interested in me talking you through about what I'm going to do in the session and so on, the key insights that I had, which I'm going to put at the beginning of the video, you can just watch that. And yeah, so I just want to test a little bit of ideas, since this is a deload week. I think this is the right time to do that. Just don't get worried if you come across it, but I'm going to reiterate that in my videos. But the normal content will come back the week after, or maybe even this week. I just want to test a few things. So anyway, thanks you for watching, and this week is going to be deload week. So bye bye.